Hi, I'm Linton from Sewing Machines Plus in Adelaide, South Australia. This is our Sewtech SWK6D4 machine. But what I'd like to talk about is basics of a compound feed sewing machine. So this is a walking foot sewing machine, as people always refer to them. But more precisely, this is a triple feed or a compound feed. Now, a walking foot, the outer feet walk. The inner foot and the needle just go up and down. What that means is the teeth underneath the feed dog, and the teeth themselves are quite aggressive, and they will mark soft leathers and vinyls. The benefit of this machine, which is a compound feed machine, done in all brands, of course, is the inner foot and the needle walk. The outer foot just goes up and down. What this means is the needle is doing a lot of the work to pull the fabric. Therefore, the underside of the feed dogs and the underside of the presser foot and the feed dogs are really relatively smooth. They're not as sharp as the other style of machine. In fact, there's almost no teeth at all under these presser feet. And so it doesn't mark leathers. So for upholstery, a compound feed is the correct machine. Whether one refers to it as a walking foot or not, the correct terminology is compound feed or triple feed. Now, just to touch on another setting that is in most compound feed machines is the walk height. So if we look now, our inner foot walks approximately 3 or 4 millimeters high, probably 4 millimeters high there, and then counteracts, and the outer foot walks the same height, about 4 millimeters off of the plate, the needle plate. Now, that's meant to be correct. That is correct. We need the inner and the outer foot walking the same height. This is a common point of failure on compound feed machines. And so if this is incorrect, if one is walking higher than the other, so let's say the outer foot barely lifts off and the inner foot walks very high, the adjustment for that on almost all compound feed machines is this pivot point at the top of the machine. So I've got this screw here or this screw here. Both do the same job to alter the pivot on this, and that will alter the height of one foot versus the other. And the way we do that is we lift one foot to about 3 millimeters high. We then put our Allen key or a spacer, a gauge basically of 3 millimeters under the outer foot, and then release the screws or the screw on the top here, and then the inner foot will drop to the bed. And then we would check that by taking out our gauge, rotating it and seeing if the inner foot walks the same height. Once again, our 3 millimeter Allen key needs to fit under the inside foot and then under the outside foot, meaning that the inner and the outer are walking at the exact same height. So check that on your compound feed machine. Now, the setting that is available on almost all compound feed machines is the height. So now that we've balanced them and they're both walking the same height, we can make that height anywhere from around 2 millimeters clearance for a very smooth action of the machine, but it won't walk over lumps very well. So this setting on the back of the machine here is a slide. We just undo that. It's usually a 14 millimeter nut or bolt, and that can slide up this track. And the higher we go on this track, the higher the foot will walk. So we don't have any measurements as such. We just do it by eye. We undo it, bring it all the way to the top and see how much that's changed the walk height. Generally, we want it as low as possible. That will still walk over basic seams. So that's the adjustment of the walk height. These, as we mentioned, are the adjustment of the even walk. how evenly the two walk against each other. And then these settings on the top, this outer one is usually just the lock. The inner one is the tension, the amount of pressure downwards onto the material. And then the outer locks it. And then in this case with a compound feed, the front one will do the same thing. It will do the separate pressure for the inner foot. These are generally left alone. It's not usually required to adjust these at all. The only time you would adjust them is if you need to fit incredibly thick work underneath. You might back them off a little bit to be able to get the height of the feet. But otherwise they're generally set and forget. So that's an explanation of a compound feed industrial sewing machine.